Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a story that's probably going to hit a little close to home for a lot of us. It's about uncovering the real meaning of workplace wellness by looking at a professional named Sarah. So, Sarah just landed a new job, and like anyone stepping into a fresh role, she was absolutely thrilled. She had one clear goal. She wanted to be the absolute best employee in the entire company. But as we'll see, that intense drive for perfection can sometimes pull you down a pretty dark path.
So, what actually happens when you try to be the perfect employee? It's a crucial question, right? We have to ask ourselves what it looks like when healthy ambition slowly, almost invisibly, morphs into a totally unhealthy obsession with work. For Sarah, her desperate need to be perfect basically meant putting blinders on and ignoring literally everything else in her life.
Section 1. The Trap of Hustle Culture.
You know, the trap of hustle culture is so seductive because the descent is super gradual. It happens in steps. First, Sarah started arriving a bit early. No big deal, right? Then step 2, she began staying late, eventually firing off emails well into the night. And then came step 3, logging on during the weekends. What starts off as just a genuine attempt to make a good impression quickly snowballs into a totally unsustainable daily routine.
The core mindset driving all this? It's a dangerous paradigm we call hustle culture. It's this insidious idea floating around that your personal worth is completely tied to your professional output, that you should just always be working, always be productive. And at first, Sarah felt like she was crushing it by living this way. But that rush, it was about to fade fast.
Section 2. Reaching the breaking point.
Those early feelings of success completely vanished as her workload began to seriously compound. Think about it. When you never say no and you're making yourself available 24/7, the amount of work on your desk only goes in one direction, and that's straight up. All that immense pressure bred a chronic, inescapable stress. For Sarah, this feeling of pressure and worry wasn't just some fleeting nervousness before a big meeting. It became her constant, everyday baseline. She was sleeping less, constantly agonizing over her to-do list, and totally isolating herself from her family and friends just to try and keep her head above water.
At this point, it became painfully obvious to Sarah that her work-life balance had just evaporated. She had more than enough time for work, sure, but that personal life, it had practically vanished into thin air. And when that balance is totally lost, you inevitably hit the breaking point, burnout. We're talking about extreme physical and emotional exhaustion caused by carrying way too much stress for way too long. Sarah was constantly exhausted, but honestly, the saddest part, she completely lost all the joy in that new job she used to be so incredibly excited about. This intense crisis phase is perfectly summed up by the old saying, she was burning the candle at both ends. Something absolutely had to change, and fast, before there was just nothing left to burn.
Section 3. Setting healthy boundaries. The very first step in Sarah's big turnaround was drawing a massive line in the sand. She desperately needed boundaries, firm limits to protect her time and her energy. So, she started with a strict rule. She completely stopped checking her work emails after 6 p.m., period. No exceptions. Next up, she prioritized real self-care. Now, self-care often gets misunderstood as just throwing on a face mask or taking a bubble bath. But true self-care is about deliberately doing things that actively repair your baseline physical and mental health. For Sarah, this meant locking in some highly actionable routines. She started walking every single evening just to physically disconnect from her screens. She began reading books for pure pleasure, not for professional development. And she intentionally carved out time to hang out with friends so she could rebuild her social support network.
But here's a crucial detail. Sarah didn't have to fix this entirely on her own. Leadership actually plays a huge role here. Her manager supported this whole turnaround by offering her a flexible schedule, which gave her the freedom to choose different working hours. Having that structural support from her boss was literally vital to her recovery.
Section 4. Redefining workplace success. So, after a few months of sticking to these new habits, Sarah was already feeling so much better. But to truly reset her system, she actually took a proper vacation, real time away from work to rest, travel, and visit her family. Stepping entirely out of that daily grind was such a critical step. That time off finally gave her the space to truly recharge.
It's just like a smartphone battery that's been drained down to 0%, right? We, as human beings, literally have to plug in to rest to regain our energy. When Sarah finally came back to the office, she felt incredibly refreshed and genuinely ready to tackle her work again.
Her whole primary focus had completely shifted. It was no longer about killing herself to be the perfect employee. It was all about her overall well-being, protecting her health, her happiness, and her quality of life. Work just became one single piece of a much larger puzzle.
And this actually leads us to a pretty brilliant paradox when it comes to productivity. You'd probably assume that by working fewer hours, Sarah got a lot less done, right? But the exact opposite happened. Because she was healthier, happier, and actually well-rested, the amount of work she got done efficiently just skyrocketed.
Contrasting these two mindsets side by side proves exactly what Sarah learned. Hustle culture demands this constant, unrelenting output, and that leads straight off a cliff into burnout. True work-life balance, on the other hand, makes sure you have time for both work and life, which guarantees sustainable success over the long haul. Today, Sarah still works hard, sure, but she knows for a fact that success is about balance, not a never-ending grind.
I want to leave you with a super powerful, yet simple reminder from our source material. Take a breather. Whenever life or your job gets overwhelmingly stressful, just remember that phrase. It's the ultimate reminder that we are actual human beings, not machines.
So, the big question remains, will you pause to recharge so you can come back stronger? Because honestly, sometimes the absolute best thing you can do for your career and for yourself is to just step back, draw your boundaries, and put your well-being first. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer on Sarah's journey. Now it's time to take these lessons, apply them to your own life, and redefine what success really means to you.